Well, welcome everyone. I want to welcome you to our next edition of Inside of the Music. This is our one for Across Silk Roads, Scheherazade, getting ready to feature our next guest conductor for our music director candidate. This is Akiko Fujimoto. Welcome, Kiko.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, we're so excited to have you today and have all of our patrons get to know you. We'll start with just some questions and we'll just kind of go back and forth with conversation and then we'll get to talk about the music. We have some exciting things programmed for our concert coming up on Saturday, January 31st at 2026. That's hard to believe. I can't not believe we're saying
Now,
2026.
I know. Happy New Year.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy New Year. So we'll start with this first one. What inspired you to become an orchestra conductor, and how did your journey begin in music? Kind of how did that morph? Where did that start?
Sure. I started out in group piano lessons because I had moved to a new city and my mom wanted me to do something outside of kindergarten and meet some other kids in town. And then eventually I joined a children's chorus, which is a very foundational um, experience for me. And I started playing in brass bands and I played the trombone starting in seventh grade. And I sang in choirs and played in bands my entire, secondary school education. And then during high school, my choir teacher was getting her master's at the same time. And so she missed a lot of school and she would get me to sub for her basically to run rehearsals in
That's
her
so cool.
absence. And that's kind of how it started, but I never thought of it as a career. And once I went to college, I was studying psychology first, while taking music major classes on the side as electives. And then I took an intro to conducting and met my lifelong mentor, and he really encouraged me and supported me when I made the switch to being a full-fledged music major, conducting major, and started applying to grad schools in conducting. So I never looked back since, but it took about 20 years to catch the bug and realize that's my instrument. So it's been a great journey.
That's so cool. Were there, you kind of mentioned it, but influential conductors or composers who shall kind of help shape your path and your interest in the field?
Sure. I would say all of the conductors I sang under as a child or as a student were very they really, I think I didn't even know, but they informed the way I work in ensembles and I treat musicians and things. And I think they were fantastic. And my trombone teacher and all those people. But of course, the most recent crop of influencers for me were the conductors that I assisted and covered for as an adult. And first at Virginia Symphony, and then San Antonio Symphony, and then most recently at the Minnesota Orchestra, where I was associate conductor until 2020. And especially there because they have a year-round schedule of the music director and then guest conductors coming and going constantly, and many of them from Europe. And so I felt that I was catching such a wide range of styles and repertoire, and also at the same time, I would go cover as a substitute cover conductor at LA Phil, where I got to assist, several wonderful conductors, and that was really interesting to see the different combinations of conductors and orchestras and their chemistry and repertoire. So they were all very influential for me.
I love that, and that very much resonates with me because I am very much in that space. So that's really cool how it makes a huge impact. When you
Yes.
are preparing for like coming to for Arkansas, what is your process for preparing the score? Maybe how do you begin that? People are always very curious. They think we just get up there and keep time, wave our arms, but it's way more than that. And I think that would be find it interesting to what your process is.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. most people think what we do is what they see on the podium on stage at the concert, but that's really just tip of the iceberg. And as you know, a lot of it is just preparation.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of do, three different types of preparation, not in any particular order. It depends on the piece and if I'm already familiar with the piece or if I've already conducted it or if I've heard it a lot,
Yeah.
growing up or something, or just a blank slate. But I do three types of studying. So one is, score analysis. So pencil and paper, and I start reading the score like a script or recipe, and I start, writing down things that kind of pop out to me. So harmonies and melodies, obviously, and rhythms and formal analysis. I'm still kind of revising the way I study, but that's how I start. And then I also do background check on the composer and kind of historical context. And if there's a story attached to the piece, of course, I try to read up on it. With the internet, a lot of information is so readily available to us now. But when I was coming up, we would go to the library and check books out the old school way. Um, and so that's the kind of the research part. And if you're able to gosh, like visit the site where the composer lived or breathed or,
Amazing.
performed or premiered this piece. I mean, that's like huge bonus, but that's very rare. Um, and meet the composer, that's the best, And then the final part is, of course, check out reference recordings. How did this conductor and this orchestra handle this passage? Or with YouTube, it's so easy to
Absolutely.
YouTube different performances, live performances, with
Mhm.
instruments in hand and people sweating it out on stage. It's so interesting to see how this person or that person handled this piece. And so it's a combination of those three things, and I just kind of leave in and out. And hopefully by the first rehearsal, I have formed a foundation that's really convincing to the orchestra and then eventually to the audience.
I like what you had to say about it constantly evolving your process. And I think that we as musicians, and especially as conductors, we're lifelong learners. And so our process is constantly changing. We find ways to look at it in a different view, especially if it's a piece that you've conducted before or played and then you revisit it. So I think that's very, very wise. And I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
How do you build trust and connection with an orchestra in a limited rehearsal time? You're going to come in on Wednesday evening, you'll have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the dress and then the concert. How do you approach that as a conductor?
Sure. So to build trust, anytime, as you know, a new conductor walks across the stage in front of you, you have a mixture of hope that they are good or semi-good,
Yeah.
and then hope that they're not mean people and that they're effective leaders basically of the
Absolutely.
process. And so there's a phrase that one of my teachers at a music festival taught me, and he said, as a rehearsal, well, two things. You have to conduct well and you
Mhm.
have to rehearse well. And conducting well, gestures, knowing the score, expressing the music, being inspiring, and embodying the music, all that stuff. But the rehearsal technique part, that takes time to build within oneself. And that's something I worked on earlier in my career very much. And this one teacher said, you have to, as you're conducting, and rehearsing. You have to obviously listen to what the orchestra is outputting, and then you have to diagnose and you have to offer a solution, just like a medical doctor.
Yes,
If there's
exactly.
an issue, you have to show that you're able to diagnose something correctly.
Mhm.
There's nothing worse than a conductor saying, that doesn't sound right. But I don't know what's going, you don't want that kind of doctor. You don't want somebody that says, I know you're not feeling well, but I don't know why.
Right.
So so there's that practical part of it. You have to diagnose and then you have to respond with a proper solution.
Mhm.
And that solution might be very obvious. Like there's a
Right.
misprint in the part, so someone's playing a wrong note, or there's an intonation issue, or we're not together. It could be
Yeah.
very basic that's audible to everybody in the room, or it could be something that only you know because you're the only one with the full score with everyone's parts
Yeah.
on a page. Or because you've studied it and you know what the issues are, and
Yeah.
then you're like, that's not happening because I think I know why that is. So you have to be able to pinpoint something
Mhm.
quickly and address it with as few words as possible in a positive way, and then offer a proper solution. And
Yeah.
it better work because if you say something that doesn't work, I mean, to me, I think that's not good, for a conductor. You lose trust quickly. So
Exactly.
it's that progression of uh, attending to issues as you're playing through something, and then your choice of when to address, whether to address something
Right.
at all, because some things, as you know, fix
Pick
themselves
and
over
choose your
time.
battles.
Yes.
Yeah, which
And
one?
then the first read through is just the musicians figuring out what tempo are you taking, how do you do this piece, they're
Mhm.
reading you for the first time too,
Right.
in addition to their music.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to process. And so the first time through, it's supposed to be a mess in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
And then musicians will make either mental or physical note and say, oh, okay, she's doing it this way here. All right, fine. Last time I
Yeah.
played this piece, it was in four, but now it's in two. Thanks,
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So it's the first time through, and it's a chance for me to check out the orchestra, like,
Mm,
okay, that's how it sounds. Cool. Okay, that's how this orchestra plays. That's cool. Um, so you're observing, and then at the end, when you're done with a certain passage or an entire piece, if you choose to
right.
move, do a whole piece or movement, if you say anything at all, like you said, you pick your battles.
Right.
You have this amount of time today,
Yeah.
and in the entire week, and then if I have time to say this, and I better say it today because it's
Right.
very foundational
Mhm.
to the whole piece, and it's about a melody that happens over and over again, or a
Yeah.
basic rhythm, that's recurring. So you better say it on the first day because it's a waste of everyone's time if you save it until the dress rehearsal say, oh, by the way, I really wanted to be,
That's too late.
you know. Right. So it's that kind of mental calculation that I actually really have come to enjoy over over the span of my conducting life. But I think that's how you build trust. And then, when you have a new conductor, you're kind of absorbing that person's style and personality as well, so
Absolutely.
that you can do your job of playing your part. And unfortunately, the conductor's, presence is a huge part of how
Mm.
you do your job. So, you're definitely part of the calculation that the musicians are making. So yes, these are things that I try and nail accurately and efficiently to win their trust.
I love that. And one of my mentors for many years, I studied with him, especially over in Europe, Larry Radcliffe, who
Oh yeah.
no longer with us, would always say you have to know how to land the plane, meaning that your process, your preparation and everything. And then it's like we approach it as a macro, micro, macro, like how we're gonna like this is the piece, this is how it goes, then we're gonna fix it, and then this is the final product of it. So I think that's awesome. So non kind of question about necessarily the like you as a conductor, but maybe what kind of music or genre influenced your taste? Like what do you like to listen to maybe outside of classical music that possibly influences your worldview, so to speak, on music?
Sure. So I have a really hard time listening to symphonic music for fun.
Yeah,
If
I
someone's
get good in
playing it,
my head.
yeah, I know. It's like you have to you start listening and you start thinking about
Same.
work, and it's kind of stressful. So when I'm not, when I'm driving or doing something or having dinner or something where, I can kind of let things go in the background, but not be stressed about it. I really don't care what it is, and I don't have a particular favorite pop artist that I focus on or anything like that. But I did grow up playing a lot of jazz because I was a trombonist. Um, and a lot of pop music. I mean, like, I came of age in the 90s and I moved to the United States in 1989.
Yeah.
So whatever was on the radio, those couple of years are kind of seared into my brain,
Right.
and I think, and of course, there are all these like, 70s, 80s stuff
Mhm.
that, I don't necessarily seek out, but I love.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like the Great American Songbook,
Mhm.
20s, 30s, 40s, like what we consider jazz standards.
Or big band.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, big band.
I love those.
I grew up playing and listened to a lot of big band like Glenn Miller
Mhm.
growing up. And I think it actually helped me as a conductor because, when I was a staff conductor at various places, big part of my job was to conduct a lot of pops. And that was like no problem for me. Things with popular beats, because it was like fun music growing up. Um, so that was really actually helpful and it was not planned, but I think yes, I would say jazz is my most commonly listened to non-classical music.
Very similar. Our household, my husband loves it. We listen to it often, and it's nice. I don't have to think about it. And
Right.
yeah,
But you still appreciate it.
absolutely. And I'm not
Yeah,
analyzing it in my head, trying to figure out all the things. And I'm like, like I'll play games with myself. I'll listen to classical music and figure out the genre, the time period. I just like the beat. It's like a game I play with myself, but that's work, so I don't want to do that all the time.
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So outside of the concert hall, where do you find your inspiration? Like maybe do you like art? What are some things that you like to do just as people get to know you a little bit better outside of just being a conductor?
Sure. So during the pandemic, I
Mhm.
caught the gardening bug and
Oh,
I never knew how to grow anything before. Like people would give me a plant, be like, you can't kill this. This is super easy. And I would kill it. And I had no interest in like living things, like growing things. And I didn't really understand how plants worked. And then, of course, during the pandemic, we're all on YouTube,
great.
this and that. And once you watch one gardening video, then thousands of gardening videos start to come on your feed. So I caught the bug, and for the first time in my life, it coincided with when I moved to Conway, Arkansas. So I live in Arkansas, and
Where's Conway at in relation
Conway
to?
is about 2.5 hours
Okay,
in
that's not
central
far.
Arkansas.
Okay,
Yeah, and it's about 45 minutes from Little Rock. And
nice,
so for the first time in my life, I had a backyard, like ever in
nice.
my life. So I had the space. And then, Arkansas is very agricultural.
Absolutely.
Very, people are very plant-based that way. Not in terms of what they eat, but, uh, just growing plants is all around us. So I started to kind of experiment and get into it. And today I'm proud to say I'm a master gardener
That's amazing.
in Faulkner County, which is where Conway is. And so I never had a hobby before. Literally, like in my life, I was just so focused on music and conducting and whenever people will say, "What do you have hobbies?" I was like, "No, I don't. I really don't." And music is both my love and work. So, but for this first time, I have something that I'm very I can go down the rabbit hole on, but it's not my work, and I don't need to do it well except for the sake of the plants that I have. And I enjoy learning about. And I'm still a novice gardener, but by being around other gardeners and
Yeah,
aficionados, I'm picking up a lot of things and getting a lot of free plants from people.
very cool.
So that's been a big development in my life the last 5 years.
That's cool. And I think that brings a lot to the table. It's called the human condition, and you're able to connect with patrons better because our patrons are not all musicians, and they have, especially in Arkansas, a lot of them have that as their livelihood. So I think that's very cool.
Yes.
Well, let's
Yeah.
dive into the program for
Sure.
January 31st coming up across Silk Road, Scheherazade. Tell us a little bit about the program, and I'll just kind of let you go with it. I know we have works by Mozart, Borodin, Ravel, Rimsky-Korsakov. Maybe we'll just dive in and you can just pick which one you want us to talk about first.
Sure. So when I was asked to come up with a couple of sample programs for
Mhm.
SoNA, obviously I visited Northwest Arkansas as a tourist
Nice.
uh, from Conway. So we drive up and go see the Crystal Bridges or go to the U of A campus or, walk down um, that main drag, from the university. So I visited several
Dixon Street,
times
I
and
think is the main drag.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, Dixon Street. And I was aware of the rapidly growing nature of the area. I mean,
It's
every
huge.
time
Huge.
we went back, it was like a different city and new buildings were popping up. And
Mhm.
of course, you hear about the growth in the area. So I kind of always knew how exciting the area was, um, and still is, and it's just kind of exponentially growing and changing. And there's a lot of commerce going on and new people coming and going into the region. And so that made me think of how the Silk Road, and of course, I do this because there's a lot of great music
Oh,
based on the countries that were on the Silk Road way back when. So it kind of made me think of how composers used music. Of course, we didn't have internet or anything like that back then. Used music in the 18th and 19th century to reflect and imagine what it's like to be in a foreign country and to be living a different life. And, you know, we used to call that exoticism. I know that's not a good word anymore to use, but whatever people, thought about, like, I wonder what it's like to be in a different place and a different time, was reflected in a lot of these creative composers' works. And we have a lot of great, as you know, pieces of music that are part of our symphonic canon that reflect that. So I put together, centered around Scheherazade, which is based on the Arabian Nights story, um, four pieces that were, in which the composers either quoted things from a foreign country or wrote things that were what their idea of that country and what was happening. So the Mozart Abduction of Seraglio has a lot of Turkish
nice.
Janissary band music in it. And in fact, I've been corresponding with the head percussionist on triangles and symbols, and he has some cool ideas about what kinds of symbols to bring to kind of make it sound like a Turkish military band. The Borden is, in the steppes of Central Asia. So it's about a caravan, you know, going across Central Asia and being protected by the Russian army. And you can hear the hooves of the horses. And it's very much about, cross-cultural phenomenon. Yes. And there is what Borden considered kind of an Eastern melody in that as well.
Often has a
Uh,
minor feel for people that have it.
exactly.
It's more of a sad feel. If you're not a musician, you're like, oh, it's minor. I mean, major feels more like sunshine, like happy. Minor feels more energy
Yes.
reflective. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think in the Middle East, there are so many modes,
Oh
more
yeah.
than, what we use in Western music. And
Absolutely.
I think that's what appeared, can I say, exotic to the, composers that were writing in the European tradition. And then the Mother Goose Suite by Maurice Ravel. He's a French composer. In the early 20th century, but the French in that part of history were the first to really catch on, Asian cultures
Yeah.
and art, paintings, and music too. And there's a movement called the Empress of the Pagodas that has um, very Chinese influences and Javanese sounds as well. And of course, the whole piece, the suite is five, pieces for children, based on the Mother Goose and other fairy tales. So that kind of longing, what's kind of over the rainbow, shall I say, is what it kind of intertwined with this foreign culture thing too. Like, as kids, they have much more imagination than we do as adults, and they're the experts on imagining, and thinking really what's over there, so it kind of plays really well with this piece. So you'll hear a lot of Asian, what Europeans considered Asian
Absolutely,
influences
yeah.
back then. And as I mentioned, Scheherazade is the heroine of the Arabian Nights, and it has what Rimsky-Korsakov considered Arabian sounds. So that was my inspiration, and that's what SoNA chose. So I was very excited about that. And as you know, we were all asked to program something without a concerto,
Yes.
which is challenging because it's always nice to have one piece where the orchestra can kind of be in the background, so we don't have to be so stressed and exposed all the time. But I wanted to do something where we featured members of the orchestra and sections of the orchestra to kind of change the palette and have a very diverse, kind of contrasting colors and activities going on for the audience's sake. So that was another reason that I chose these, like especially Mother Goose and Scheherazade have a lot of solos from
Yeah.
the orchestra. So
And I like you chose Mozart. I mean, to me, Mozart is very much like a palate cleanse. Yeah, it gets you ready for what you're going to be listening for, and it really kind of sets the stage for everything. And yeah, you're right. All of it centers around it, and I love Scheherazade. I actually conducted it last year with Indiana, and
oh, cool.
it's just such a great piece. I love
It
the
is.
storytelling and music, anyways. I have such a guess I feel like I've never grew up as a child in my head as far as my imagination. So when I hear a piece of music, I'm like, I wonder what that would happen in this part of the story. Kind of.
Yes.
Well, we're so excited to meet you, to be able to work with you. And I know our patrons listening and watching this as they prepare to come to our concert are just so excited. Is there any last words that you would like to share with anyone as we get ready to wrap up for today?
I'm looking forward to making music with the musicians of SoNA and of course sharing it with the audience. So I look forward to seeing everyone.
Yes, well, I can't wait to start working with you. I'll be your ears in the audience working with you all weekend, and we're super excited to
Great.
have you there. Yeah.
Great.
So, well, safe travels home because I know you're joining us from Japan today, but I know you'll be headed back to Arkansas soon. Uh,
Yes.
so, if you don't have your tickets yet, make sure that you are preparing to join us on Saturday, January 31st, 2026. And again, Happy New Year, everyone. And Akiko, thank you so much again for your time. We are so excited to see you coming up on Across Silk Road's Scheherazade. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye.
Bye.